Now let's say that we have a sample reading lesson. We would suggest that you start with introductory activities. So the introductory activities for a reading lesson will focus on the text. So we can create a situation, we can create a context. The text is about maybe market women. So we can talk about going to the market. And what do women do in the market? What are the kinds of things we might use or find in the market? And then your pupils can begin to bring out, you can elicit from them different vocabulary. And then you can also teach some vocabulary that have to do with the text, some words that are in there that might be difficult for them to learn. So you pre-teach vocabulary. You can also ask the learners to predict the content. So the title is The Biggest Market in Abuja. What do you think this text is about? So you don't just go straight into the text. There has to be an introductory activity. It could be a warmer, it could be a game, it could be a situation or scenario that you created. It could even be anything else. Maybe you could do a role play, you could do something. You can engage them by looking at the topic. You can tell them to highlight all the important words or read them out, and then you pre-teach it. The different things you can do. So reading lessons don't have to be as boring as they usually are in many classes. Then from the introductory activity, you go into the main activity, which is basically reading to understand the text using any of the reading stop skills. Okay? So you go into the text and you give them activities, based on what the text has in store or the plan you have for them. So we have post-task activities. After they've done the main activity by reading the text, and the main activity could be games. In a reading lesson, you can have um, paragraphs where you cut your paragraph into cut them up, and then you distribute them as scattered series of text. So students in groups have to read and arrange the text in the correct sequence. We're testing their understanding of coherence. Which paragraph comes first? Which do you think is the next paragraph? And which is the next and the next? They require understanding to do that. So that's an activity we could do. Okay, so post-task activities. After you've done everything, you can now engage your learners. Remember, in English, we want students to talk, not just listen or read, but to produce language. So ask learners to talk about the topic, to share their opinions, and relate what they have read to their knowledge of the world. Very important. That's how reading or comprehension lessons should be. They should be very engaging. It should be the highlight of the week for learners to be in your comprehension class. But a lot of the times, learners are half asleep in the teacher's comprehension class. All right? So activities should allow learners to produce language while doing a reading activity. As much as possible, we want all the 4 skills to work together so they can write or they can speak. So in English lessons, we create activities that will allow listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And you can take this same approach and you can put it into any other lesson. Why? Because we teach in a language, and in our context, we use English language to teach. So this method that I just described for a reading lesson can be used in a social studies lesson. You can bring in a text. You do introductory activities, and the text is about marriage. You can ask your students to discuss the topic. What do you think this is going to be about? I've given you a text. Can you scan through the text and tell me what the text is saying? Can you highlight any difficult words in the text that we can identify or define? And then you can give them activities from the text on marriage. They can do some activities, they can discuss, they can talk about and learn about marriage. They can now connect it also to their knowledge of the world. If their parents are married, then they understand what marriage is all about. Okay, so the same techniques in English language teaching can be used in any other lesson. We can just simply adapt them.